Hi everybody, welcome. Thank you very much for getting this far. I hope you're enjoying the course. We've been amazed at the huge variety of people that we've had from all over the world who've subscribed to the course, all sorts of different backgrounds. I think that's really evident from your introductions and also from the comments you have. But the numbers are astonishing. So we've got something like 15,000 subscribers, around 2,500 active learners. You've posted more than 5,000 comments on the various articles and things, and we've already had 250 people who've completed the course. So well done to you. Remember, you're entitled to a statement of participation, and you can find more information about that on the FutureLearn site. There's been a number of really interesting comments I wanted to pick up on in this video. The first one was from Tiana, Jade and Manuel, and they asked, will social media change our behaviour? And I would say that the answer to that appears to be yes, it has changed our behaviour and it will continue to change our behaviour. But we're always going to continue to see the same patterns emerging or re-emerging in new ways. So for example, in the course we talked a bit about homophily, and that's how people on social media sites tend to group together with people who are like themselves. And we still see that online, but in different ways than we see offline. So offline, for example, the most powerful type of homophily is probably geographic. You tend to know people who live near yourself. But online that changes, and the homophily we have tends to be based on the hobbies we participate in or the professions that we're a member of. So for example, as an academic, I know other academics from all across the world, far more than I would have done 20 or 30 years ago. But I don't really know plumbers or architects or doctors. Sometimes this phenomena is called cyber balkanization, this idea that different sort of professional or interest groups appear online and perhaps don't know much about each other. And it's an example of how our existing social theories evolve and change when they're applied to online settings. There's been a lot of comments about the terminology that we've introduced on the course. So in particular, Stephen Malone said, why do we have terms like nodes and edges? Why aren't we using more familiar words, things like roads or links or connections? And the truth is that we need a terminology for things that we tend to see in different networks under different names. So what I mean by that is in Facebook, we've got friendships and we've got people. In Twitter, we've got people and we've got follower relationships. But we need a kind of common language, a common high-level term, so we can compare those two things. So I'll give you an interesting example. Let's think about the FutureLearn network. So we can think about learners as nodes, and we can think about follows as edges. And that gives us a nice social network that comes out of FutureLearn. But there are more than one network in that FutureLearn system. So for example, we can also think about learners being the nodes and comments being the edges. So in other words, two learners are connected together if one of them has commented on a post that another person has made. Or we can completely switch it around. So we can say, well, rather than have the people be the nodes, let's make the courses be the nodes. And then the learners become the edges. So two courses are connected together if they have a learner who's participated in both courses. So you can look at social media in all sorts of different ways, and you can see all sorts of different social networks emerging. And it's really important to have a neutral set of terminology that we can use to talk about those things. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was a post that appeared quite early on in the course by Helmut Agesa-Wagabi. And they asked about what we hope to achieve with the course, and particularly commenting on some of the technical aspects. Why is it a technical course? So my first comment is it's not as technical as perhaps it first appears. So don't be put off by some of the equations and things that you see on some of the pages. Where we think it's a problem, we've put a bit at the top that's called essential knowledge, and that contains the concepts that you need to know to understand the course. Below that, where we start to talk a bit more about where these ideas come from and give some more formal definitions, well, those are strictly optional. They're for the people who have particular backgrounds, who like to have that information presented in that way. So have a go and draw the line where you're comfortable. If you understand the key concepts, you should be fine. The second thing I'd say about the technical aspects of the course is that bear in mind this is just the tip of the iceberg. So Eric Kemper mentioned in one of his comments big data and the use of big data analytics, and I think Nigel talked about it as well in his video. And the truth is that people out there are doing much more complex modelling of social networks. So for example, applying machine learning techniques or statistical methods to do all sorts of things, so to make recommendations to people in the network, to use predictions about behaviour. And what we've tried to do in this course is to show you how even simple analysis can tell you interesting things. So for example, when we had our office network and all we did was count up the number of edges, the number of connections that the people had in that network. But that tells us something interesting about people and how they're participating. And lastly, I think part of that question that's interesting is what do we hope to achieve? Why are we doing this? So there's a saying in the world of kind of web technology and web development, which is that if you're not paying, you're not the customer, you are the product. And I think that's a really important thing to remember about social networks, many of which of course are free to join and use. Because a key part of the power of social networks is what it says about the people in that network to others, and of course the people who own that network. It doesn't matter whether you're a company profiling people in order to sell those profiles to advertisers, or whether you're a regime identifying dissidents by looking at social networks and finding out who the key people are and the key players are. But social networks are extremely powerful in that regard. Now next week Lisa's going to talk a lot more about how you can take personal advantage of social networks and negotiate some of these pitfalls. Social networks are a huge opportunity for us, as well as being something we need to be wary about. But I think it's really important that you never forget this bigger context. I think that is the true power of social networks.